All right, hello everybody. My name is Ricky Eckhart with ExxonMobil. I'm the IT/OT architect. My presentation is not going to be so much from a technology perspective. I think we're hearing a lot about that in all these great presentations and with all the suppliers in the room next door. But it's really going to be about the journey that we've taken to get to where we are. And later in the afternoon, one of my colleagues, Apostolos Georgiou, is going to be presenting about some of the fantastic work that he's doing within the advanced control application space. So I would encourage everybody to attend this session and then follow it on with Apostolos' session, which I believe is in the same room. All right? So we'll go ahead and get started. So I always start off my discussions from an IT/OT perspective, talking about this theme of balance. So my role as the IT/OT architect was created in January of last year. So I've only been here for about 13 months. Prior to that, I had some relatable assignments within what we called our digital manufacturing space, rolling out new technology to our refineries and chemical plants. But when I came over to the IT/OT role, it was really focused on how do we enable business value, but also maintain a really strong focus on cybersecurity. I think when we talk about all the buzzwords such as digital transformation, IT/OT convergence, it's really easy to slip into that stream of looking at the technology for technology's sake. But we also have to take a very, very strong focus on cybersecurity because that is our table stakes, that's our license to operate, and we can lose our seat at the table if we don't have the right cybersecurity built into whatever it is that we're doing. So I start with this theme of balance. So as we're going through different parts of our journey within ExxonMobil, one of the things that we're taking a strong lens on is how do we enable earnings and business growth? How do we grow our business? How do we improve our top line, bottom line metrics and ultimately deliver business value? So we have a lot of business ambitions, as all companies do, and we're looking for those opportunities to invest in so we can drive business value. A lot of the opportunities that come up within our internal digital transformation organizations, they're looking at new technologies, cloud capabilities, edge compute, AI, ML, IoT, all those buzzwords that are being floated around. But they're also taking a hard look at how do we take advantage of the data that we've been collecting for years and years within our control systems, that rich data that can lead to enhanced optimization opportunities, that can really feed all these technology enablers and drive real value. So a lot of opportunity there to help the business grow their earnings and make more money, but we have to balance that, and we have to balance that with enabling cybersecurity in all that we do. So again, I use this slide when I communicate to our executives to make sure that they understand it's not all about the value because we can easily lose all that value if we don't take that lens of cybersecurity at the same time. So when we think about cybersecurity from an OT perspective or an IT/OT perspective, we have to respect that there's fundamental differences between the environments. I think that gets lost in translation sometimes, depending on who you're talking to within your C-suite or within your respective leadership lines. But we have to respect that there are fundamental differences between those environments that have to be taken into account when you're trying to build architectures that's going to integrate technology between those domains. We also want to significantly limit connectivity within our OT environments. And so that's something that's always talked about. We classify that as external network connections or limiting the pathways from our level 4 environment into our level 3 environment and below. But that's something that we need to take into account. So if you look back on those business ambitions, people are trying to reach in and take more data out and also send more data into those control system environments. And from a cybersecurity perspective and an operations integrity perspective, we're trying to say, no, we want to limit that as much as possible. We want to maintain the integrity of that environment because they are very critical to our business units. And last but not least, we have a lot of legacy systems within those OT environments that we need to be cognizant of. So it's all the IT technology that sounds really good, sometimes doesn't play very well within our OT environments because of the legacy and the technical debt that we've built up over time. So all these components need to come together to try to create this balance because you can tip the scale too far one way or the other, and it's not going to enable you or your company to win. So I used this as a backdrop when I was proposing some of the portfolio of activities that we have going on now within ExxonMobil to try to help calibrate expectations across our leadership to make sure that we took that theme of balance into consideration when we started up some of these activities. So what we decided to do is let's start building some architecture and technology. Let's start initiating some pilots and proof of concepts to try to understand how can we grow earnings and deliver value to the business, but do it through that lens of cybersecurity where we're also using technology to strengthen our cybersecurity posture and not create residual weakness by introducing a lot of new interconnectivity within our environments. So these are some of the principles that we're working off of in terms of, we're really trying to mitigate risks with introducing new connections, which does add value. There's a lot of IoT opportunities out there where suppliers want to come in, drop their gateways that have external or have LTE cards in them, connect some sensors to it, stream that data off somewhere else into a third-party cloud, and do great things with that data. Well, we're trying to work with our suppliers to make sure that we collaborate so we don't have a multiplicity of those types of devices running through all of our plants. And when I say plants, I'm talking our unconventional space, our upstream conventional, downstream, midstream chemicals, et cetera. So we can get very quickly overwhelmed with all those devices out there. And not only that, but we're losing our data. And that's something that we believe very firmly at ExxonMobil, that we want to maintain ownership of that data. We want to collaborate with all the third parties that have fantastic analytics suites up in the cloud, but we also want that data for internal consumption as well. We've been building up a contingent of data scientists within our IT organization, within our research and engineering organization, within our upstream technology organization. We want to unleash those individuals with access to all this rich data that we're starting to acquire. We want to collaborate with a third party so they can provide us business value as well. So we need to develop an architecture that allows both worlds to coexist. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we own that very valuable ExxonMobil data. We still have to find a way to integrate securely all these new emerging technologies into our environments. So I talked about IoT a little bit. That's something that we've been focused on for a number of years. I think we're making some good progress in that domain. But we also have this thing called edge compute and AI, ML. How do we get these capabilities to coexist within an environment that has fundamental differences in the network capabilities, a lot of legacy systems within the environment? So there's a lot of work that we're doing in that space from a pilot perspective to make sure that we can deploy those types of capabilities securely, and then also with a lens on how do we scale this effectively and then ultimately support and sustain all this new technology. So we're looking at it from not just from a technical perspective, but from a sustainability perspective, making sure that we're putting something in that we can actually support from a global standpoint. And last but not least, best-in-class cybersecurity. As I've said a couple of times, that's the table stakes and really the license to operate to do any of this. Because if we compromise this by going after our business value, then we've already lost. Okay? So what did we do? So once we aligned on all those attributes on the following, or the prior slide, we really came together as a company from an IT perspective, our various organizations that support the operations technology environments across the company, our business lines, again, upstream, downstream, midstream, et cetera. We brought in some subject matter experts. I know Eric Byers is not here this time at ARC, but we brought him in to bring an industry perspective from an ISA standpoint, and some of our key suppliers that we work with very frequently. And we said, let's come together and start to galvanize around some focus areas where we can begin to build some architecture, deploy some technology, and really understand what is the business value and how do we do this in a secure way with that focus on global sustainability. So we have some focus areas that we're starting to do some work in. So number one is enhanced network security. So again, we have to respect that there are fundamental differences between our IT networks and our OT networks. But on the IT side, there's been a lot of advances from a technology standpoint that can provide some value in the OT world if we can do it with the right balance of not introducing any operations integrity concerns. So we have a body of work that we're collaborating with our research and engineering organization to build out a new network design that really challenges some of the historical paradigms of the Purdue model. So it's using new technologies, software-defined networking, to really focus on a zone and conduit approach, doing this in the lab with a very rigorous cybersecurity penetration testing program to make sure that we're actually providing more segmentation, that we're able to identify and isolate any issues of concern without compromising or impacting any of the other zones within the network. So we're in the early stages of that, but some promising indicators coming in so far from our lab testing, and we think this has a lot of potential. So a lot of focus will be here, trying to look at how do we take advantage of technology to enhance our network security, and also to enable things like how do we securely connect to the cloud? How do we enable these IoT use cases to flow data not only into our internal systems so we can own that very rich data, but also share it with key third parties so they can do some analytics on our behalf as well. So the network security focus area really bleeds into the other areas, but it's a key enabler for this secure cloud connectivity. Up here, technology integration. So this is where we're looking at how we leverage the new advances with compute and other capabilities like leveraging containers to securely host and integrate machine learning models into our control system environment. There's been a lot of advances in compute capabilities. Our applications folks are going to talk about some of the opportunities that they have within their domain. We're looking at providing the platforms to really unleash the potential of our application engineering community so they can take advantage of these new high-performance computing capabilities like GPU processors, and then the software that can support some of their capabilities to bring in some advanced programming languages, allow them to utilize containers and continuous integration and development pipelines so they can build models and deploy them in a very secure and repeatable way. And again, last but not least, cybersecurity resiliency. This is something that's very near and dear to us, so we want to make sure that, again, everything that we're doing has this lens of cybersecurity. And this is something that we really aspire to be one of the highest priorities that we work on. So we're taking a hard look at what are we doing very good right now from a cybersecurity perspective, what's going on in the industry that we can learn from, bringing in some key subject matter experts to help us understand what are some of the adjacent industries doing very well from a cybersecurity standpoint. And we're doing a lot of fantastic things, but of course we're always looking at how do we continue to improve in this space, knowing that we have some of these key technology integrations coming down the pipeline. So we need to be designing for not just today's environment, but with an understanding of these other technologies with more interconnectivity is coming, and we want to be prepared for that as well. So just some points up here that I wanted to write down and highlight what has been a blueprint of success for us thus far. So strategy development requires strong collaboration. I cannot overstress this. We have a lot of fantastic people within ExxonMobil. Some of them, we have a lot of great IT people who have no perspective of what goes on in an operating facility. But if we can bring those very technical IT individuals, partner them with some folks that grew up in the plants, really good things can happen. So bringing people together across our integrated company has been one of our critical success factors, which has allowed us to really accelerate to where we are today. So collaboration is fundamental for success. Bringing that OT and engineering, or OT will bring the engineering and the operations mindset, and IT can bring that technical competency and capability. There's also a lot of technical competency and capabilities within the OT space, and the IT domain needs to respect that. From a cybersecurity perspective, it was mentioned earlier today by somebody from ExxonMobil. There was a lot of cybersecurity fundamentals and foundation built up in the OT domain. And when we brought over some of the IT people to that part of the company, they were surprised. Because when they think cybersecurity in the OT domain, they're protecting critical assets, operating units, which can have significant consequences if bad things happen. And so there's a lot of technical expertise that we need to make sure that we collaborate with on both sides of that fence. The IT and the OT experts are definitely better together. The more that we've been involved in this journey by bringing in the OT folks and the IT folks together, like I said, great things happen at that intersection. There's a lot of collisions. Sometimes those collisions can be a little challenging while people get to know each other, but once those relationships are cultivated, really great things can happen. So people are fundamental to success. Bring them together, make sure all voices are heard, and that's when you can really unlock some potential. Expect barriers. It's not going to be easy. You are bringing two worlds together that historically have been separated for very good reasons. Bringing them together will create some challenges, and you have to work through those challenges and respect each other's differences, and also try to create empathy for the other individuals, just like any type of relationship. Also, technology is great until it isn't. So I mentioned that we're working with containers. Containers are fantastic. They've been around for a while. We've been using them in the IT space to do some fantastic things. How we deploy those in the OT environment, there's going to be a lot of challenges to do that in a secure and effective way. And then we have to think about the ongoing sustainability of that. Do we have the right skill sets to sustain all this new technology within the OT environment once we have it deployed? So technology is fantastic until it isn't. If you can't sustain what you deploy, then you don't derive the value. Not everyone will be willing to try new things. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. That's been the mentality for a lot of different things within the past. So challenging people to think outside of the box and try to integrate this new technology, which will introduce risk, which you will have to manage and mitigate, is very challenging for some individuals. So we have to appreciate that. This is a journey, and it's going to be one that we need to have deliberate focus on to make sure that we're doing the right things at the right time. And so when you run into that resistance from an IT/OT convergence perspective, stop and listen, because there can be some really good reasons why you shouldn't be doing what you're trying to do. That brings me down to my other one. Some of the folks that'll be resistors are more than likely experts in their field. So we should listen to them. They probably lived through some things in the past that they don't want to live through again. So we need to respect that and really take a moment and listen to what they have to say. Technology is great until it isn't. Listen to the people that have been around. They probably have some really good stories for you. And then last but not least, identify some external resources. Like I said, we've brought in some key suppliers, folks that we work with quite a bit, key industry consultants to help us understand what's going on elsewhere in the industry, and then also adjacent industries to make sure that we're taking that external lens as well as the internal lens. I think that's been very important to get us to where we are today. And I would encourage everybody to do that as well. Reach out to some of the experts in your field or your industry, because there's a lot of good things going on, and there's a lot of activities that have been started and frankly failed. And you want to learn from those failures instead of replicating them yourselves if you can. All right, so that's all I have. Looking forward to the panel discussion. If you have any questions that we can't get to in the panel, happy to have a coffee or something afterwards. Thank you.